I welcome everyone to the historic Fatzinger Hall, part of the Waterloo Library. Now, if you have not been to Fatzinger Hall before, I will let you know that this is the original part of the building, of course, a Queen Anne style building, and this is a pretty famous stage. We've had some famous speakers up here. Frederick Douglass and Susan B. Anthony, to name just a couple. We're here this evening to honor a very valuable member of our community, Mrs. Doris Wolf. Now, we call this the Wells Award Ceremony, named after Henry C. Wells, who was the co-founder of Memorial Day. Over 150 years after Henry C. Wells lived in Waterloo, we're still talking about him. It's going to be the same for Doris, too. And everyone else who has received this award. There are people who contribute so much, you can never forget them. All right, ladies and gentlemen, our first guest this evening. It is an honor for me to introduce Senator Mike Nozzolio. Senator Nozzolio has been a strong supporter of the Waterloo Library and Historical Society and was instrumental in helping us to secure the state funding we needed to complete our restoration project. Senator Nozzolio has worked to preserve the rich heritage and history of Waterloo, and his support of our local fire and police agencies have been unparalleled. The senators worked very hard for the veterans of our region, from fighting to enact important measures like the Jobs for Heroes Act or the Hire a Vet tax credit, to organizing his annual holiday drive for the troops. Senator Nozzolio has been committed to supporting our veterans. Senator Nozzolio was also the driving force behind the establishment of the Sampson Veterans Memorial Cemetery, where nearly 200 American heroes are now buried. Please join me in welcoming Senator Mike Nozzolio.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. What a wonderful way to begin the Memorial Day weekend. This part of the Celebrate Commemorate weekend is always my favorite. And that I hope each and every one of you enjoy this weekend as much as I will. And, the Memorial Day ceremonies begun here and continued throughout our region and nation are ceremonies that we enjoy, and out of necessity we must endure. I'd be remiss if I didn't welcome again to this very stage President Lincoln and President Roosevelt. It's not often that I have the opportunity to share a podium with such distinguished Americans. A bust of Theodore Roosevelt hangs prominently in my office in the New York State Capitol. As a former New York State Assemblyman, I welcome another former New York State Assemblyman, and of course Governor of the state of New York, as well as President of the United States. President Lincoln is a guiding star for anyone who's involved in politics and government. I ask myself many, many times, what would Lincoln do in this circumstance? The most humble of men, with the most strongest of intellect, and arguably the greatest president in the history of America. And I'm so pleased that our two reenactors continue to come here. And it's also nice to see them through the year on a variety of other television and historical programs. So thank you, gentlemen, very much for your participation. This will be my second of 8 ceremonies to participate in this Memorial Day weekend. Josh mentioned the Sampson Veterans Memorial Cemetery. And I urge each and every one of you to be active in your own locales, celebrate, and commemorate, and honor those veterans from your own communities. But on the afternoon of the Monday, Memorial Day, there is now the third year of commemoration at the Sampson Veterans Memorial Cemetery. There were 200 that participated last year. And that now with almost 200 interned at the cemetery, we are indeed blessed to have that as a fitting memorial within the shadow of the birthplace of Memorial Day. The Henry Wells Award that this committee and others represent and present each and every year has had many distinguished recipients. I see some of them in the audience tonight. That it is indeed an honor for the community to bestow on one of their favorite sons or daughters. And that certainly not to take away from any of the prior winners, but there is no one more deserving than Doris Wolf. That I could chronicle, as Assemblyman Kolb and I tried to do, succinctly in a resolution that was presented and enacted in both the State Senate and Assembly in Doris's honor. It's so difficult to capsulize her energy, boundless enthusiasm, her drive, her attention to detail, her creative abilities, her just downright commitment to everything she ever commits to. And you all know how many things those are. The Waterloo Celebrate Commemorate would not be the same without Doris. That she has dedicated much of her time and talents to that civic endeavor. But there are many, many others, whether it be her work on behalf of the 4-H, as a Red Cross volunteer, as a part of her time to help as liaison to the Armed Forces Emergency Services. That her identity with public affairs, of course, began with her career as a journalist, but continues each and every day to behalf of so many charitable organizations here in our region, where Doris helps publicize things and says it in a way that everyone can relate to, and that helps the organization time and time again. As a founding member of the Matilda Jocelyn Gage Foundation, of the Finger Lakes and the Finger Lakes Friends of the Women's Rights National Historic Park, as a great steadfast supporter of our nation's troops time and time again. Doris, people don't know the tremendous things that she does day in and day out. She even adopted a platoon from Fort Drum. Now, I'm not sure if those were formal adoption papers. I wouldn't be surprised if Doris did do that. But she continues to impress and continues to be involved, and is certainly, we're so pleased that she continues to do so. The other organizations like the United Way, the National 4-H Council, are just some of many of those organizations of which she is a great public servant for. On a personal note, I was very honored to nominate and have her accepted to be as characterized a woman of distinction by the New York State Senate. That Doris was one of the very first so honored, and I can't tell you that she continues to exceed every aspect of what it means to be a community-spirited individual. I just scattered through some of the organizations that Doris helps and that she has been involved with in this official thank you note from the New York State Senate and Assembly, chronicling Doris's history and commemorating this day when she is the recipient of the Henry Wells Award. I also would like to present and this resolution was enacted by both Assembly and Senate and sponsored by Assemblyman Brian Cole and myself, and I'd be presenting it to her. For me, I'd also like to present Doris in commemoration for Henry C. Wells Award, a New York State flag that has flown over the New York State Capitol in Doris's honor. And our state flag is a beautiful, beautiful thing. A beautiful commentary on the history and strength and character of New York State. On this state flag, there are two ladies. One is Lady Justice, as a part of the cornerstone of fairness and judicial strength that our state has exhibited. The other is Lady Liberty. And these two ladies, chosen to be part of our state seal, I think you could put Doris right in the middle. Lady Liberty and Lady Justice and Doris Wolf. And that says so much about New York State, about how we are blessed to have Doris here instead of Massachusetts, where she came from. And please, I know there will be a number of presentations and accolades, but join me in congratulating a great citizen of our region, Doris Wolf.
Thank you, Senator. All right, at this moment I would like to welcome our board president, Kaaren Gerlach.
The Henry C. Wells Award is given to an individual who makes Waterloo a better place because of their service to the community. Tonight's recipient was born in Massachusetts, but luckily for New York State, and more specifically Seneca County, she made her home here with her husband Walter, with whom she recently celebrated 50 years of marriage. She has 2 daughters, Terry Lynn and Patricia, and 5 grandchildren. She was able to raise a family, have a successful marriage, have a career as a journalist, and still manage to become what can only be termed as a professional volunteer. This year's recipient serves on numerous boards in the community. She is the founding member of the Matilda Jocelyn Gage Foundation and the Finger Lakes Friends of the Women's Right National Park. Her volunteer work includes the Red Cross, where she has been involved in responding to 9/11, hurricanes, ice storms, and the Long Island plane crash. She was a volunteer for Invista, where she taught first aid and life-saving skills. She was a 4-H leader for 28 years. She even has helped build houses for Habitat Humanity. She is a member of the Celebrate Commemorate Committee, is involved with the Seneca Community Players Theater, and is a literacy volunteer where she teaches English as a second language and tutors. She also has served on the Friends of the Sampson Park Committee and been a trustee of the Waterloo Library Board and Historical Society. She co-created the Waterloo Walking Tour and worked to help revive the Erie Canal and create the Canalway Trail. In her spare time, she adopted a platoon, as the senator mentioned, from Fort Drum and sends in goodies every week. We can also not forget that she is a Waterloo Rotarian, where she is involved in numerous community service projects. She is the co-founder of Trevor's Gift Backpack Program, where her and Kaaren see it to it that 135 backpacks of food are given out to children in Waterloo every week so that they have food on the weekend. One might say, wow, the only thing she hasn't done in her life is write a book. But they would be wrong, because she is the co-editor of the History of Waterloo. I've read a large list of things that Doris has accomplished in her life, and I'm sure that there's a lot more that I haven't mentioned that she's done. But this is only a list. What it doesn't tell is the story of Doris and all the love that she has vested in the people in the community. or who the real Doris is. I've served on a few of these boards with her that I have previously mentioned, and have seen the time and effort she's put into what she does. But the favorite memories of Doris are not watching her in action on these committees, but her interaction with people. When I think of Doris, my fondest memories are her personal interaction with kids. Doris and I were raising two boys at the same time. I was raising my son, and she was raising her grandson, Zach. Because our boys were the same age, they were mostly on the same sports teams, and I was able to see Doris interact with the boys, and I cannot explain the unconditional love she had for every child. Don't get me wrong, they all had a little bit of fear of Doris. They knew. They hiked up their pants if she came along. No underwear were to be showing. Because they knew if she was around and she saw those underwear, their pants were coming down. No ifs, ands, or buts. I think a few belts were bought during that time. It became a joke with the basketball team, but they also knew she loved them, and she would do anything for them if they needed a ride. She was there. If they needed an odd job to earn some extra money, she was there. If she saw one of them struggling academically, she was the first to volunteer to help them, tutor them. When so many kids in society today don't have stability, there's at least one person that they can count on to look out for their best interests. Some of those kids will never know who the face is that makes sure that they are fed every weekend. But some of those kids were lucky enough to interact with her personally, and she was on the sidelines cheering for them, encouraging them in their personal life. One of my fellow board of trustees and members of the Waterloo Library and Historical Society and I were talking the other day about what I was going to say about Doris. And there was one thing we determined. You can say whatever you want about Doris, but there's one thing everyone knows, and that she would do anything for anybody, at any time, day or night. I would never think twice about calling Doris if there was something my family needed, because I know she'd do it in a heartbeat. This is the kind of person she is. It is with great honor that the Waterloo Library and Historical Society presents this year's Wells Award to Doris Wolf in recognition of her unwavering service to our community and to the people in it.
Well, she told me I couldn't cry, but I didn't listen. So now my glasses are all fogged up. So thank you, Kaaren, for this great honor. It's been made even more special because I'm the first woman to receive it, and also because I knew all the men who received it beforehand. They were men I worked with and men I admired and respected very much. Thank you all for coming, but I want to take a moment to acknowledge someone who is not here, but who would have been if he could. Howard Van Kirk was my friend, my mentor, co-writer on the History of Waterloo, and the Dean of the Seneca County Press Corps. And way back many years ago, he gave a young high school student named Mike Mazzolio his first job as a sports reporter for the Revitalize. And we will miss Howard. So when there's something like this happens, there's a lot of thank yous. And the first thank you has to go to my husband, Walter. He, in himself, is an amazing person. He was 35 years a professor at RIT, 15 of those as department chair and the founding dean of the Golisano College of Computing and Information Scientists. It all sounds important, but the most important thing is he's been able to live with me for more than 50 years. cry when he has classes. This file it under information. Welch is an enabler. He's always ready to help with a check, with a hug, with good advice, or a witty quip. I'm so grateful, Walter, to have you as my life partner. When I came to Waterloo, I was fortunate to find the company of some strong, smart, determined, and creative women who shared my commitment to community service. My partner in crime and in coffee at the Green Apple, Kaaren Gerlach, who helped lead Trevor's gift, works with me on the parade, and provides support and counsel in good times and bad. My neighbor and fellow Rotarian Patsy Amadon, and her ever-smiling husband, Harry, who is always there with good advice, even when I don't want to hear it. The indefatigable Jane Schaefer, who follows in her father's footsteps and has done so much for this community, which many people know, and a lot of stuff that nobody will ever know. Kathy Segrist, another hard worker and fellow Rotarian, who's always willing to pitch in and help or step up and lead. Tanya Warren, who in fact first proposed the Wells Award and does a lot to preserve our history. And there's so many more. So forgive me if I don't name you all, but I know it would not be possible for me to accomplish anything without all of your help, and I thank you. I loved coming home again to Waterloo and establishing Home Again Farm with my flock of sheep and our 2 daughters. I love the small town feeling I found here. I loved its connection to the women's rights movement and its patriotism. I enjoyed taking up the challenge of the late Beatrice Contant and writing the Waterloo Walking Tour brochure with photographs by Darlene Dupre and printing sponsored by Senator Nozzolio to share the remarkable history of my new hometown with future generations. And thank you, Kathy, for making it the basis for this year's Creative Expressions competition and helping make that dream come true. Founding Trevor's Gift, our backpack program, has made me even more proud of my adopted hometown. I'm impressed every day with the great generosity of this community. I thank God for the businesses that find creative ways to raise funds to help feed our children, for the organizations and individuals who send donations that have enabled us to put food in more than 22,000 backpacks. People like Mark Benjamin of Seneca Meadows, who not only send us a check every year, but also provide workers once a month to help fill the totes with the bags of food. Oh, and by the way, we could use 2 more people to donate 1 hour at noonish once a month to help fill the totes. If you got to be able to lift 50 pounds, contact Kaaren or me. We'd be happy to. I'm grateful for people like Charlotte Carroll and for the ladies of the Waterloo Fire Department Auxiliary who sacrifice to send donations every month. To our loyal drivers who deliver the food each week, the staff at the Waterloo schools who help distribute the bags to the students, the Waterloo Baptist Church that gives us rooms to store the food, and the incomparable Linda Waters of the Waterloo Education Foundation who keeps track of the money, because God knows I can't. The program could not exist without all of you. I thank the people of Celebrate Commemorate who make putting on this weekend so much fun. I thank the board of the Waterloo Library and Historical Society for recognizing me. It truly is a great honor. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to present our 16th President, Abraham Lincoln.
Thank you so kindly. It is an honor for me to be here and to say a few things. I'll say very few. I do not know Doris Wolf as you do. But I do know this. Both those in ways that none of us will ever understand. When I was just a boy, I was deeply impressed by the history of those who served selflessly. I read about struggles and toils of people from my grandfather's generation and pondered long and hard over why they did what they did. I think there may be some who are pondering over you. Past or present, the mark will remain. I have a cabinet member who I think is probably dying and serves his country indefatigably, untiringly, as apparently you have done as well. I was inspired by those stories of old, and I am inspired by those with whom I rub shoulders every day. I'm inspired by you as well. Thank you. Thank you.
I am delighted to be here in Waterloo tonight with you once again. I appreciate Mr. Lincoln keeping his remarks short, for that gives me more time to speak, and I'm ready to I was going to talk a little bit about community service and volunteerism in my time out in the Dakotas as a ranchman and my time as the New York City Police Commissioner. And then the good senator happened to mention how we share time in the New York Assembly, although not the same time. And I got to thinking that when I was a young man in Midtown, New York City, I was a part of that community. And I knew even then that I wanted to serve the community. I wanted to serve my people. You know, I was told by my relatives and those of my class that our class didn't get involved in such things. That government was all dirty and down and to be left to those who wish to wallow in the, you know, in the muck of politics. This was below us, it was beneath us. Well then, if it is beneath us, what good are we doing elsewise? Where can we do better than in government where we can actually accomplish something? And I wanted to be in the assembly, and I ran, and I was elected. And I went to the assembly, and I knew right away that I wasn't going to sit in the seat and let some old veteran politician tell me what to do and how to vote. I had my own ideas how to best serve. And there are those of you who may have heard that while I was an assemblyman, I was so opinionated, stubborn, always thought I was right, that I wanted to lead, and I wanted to lead my way, and nobody else's, which are all traits that I'm told I share with Mrs. Wolf. A community needs people who are willing to get up and do something. It needs those stalwarts that make a community a community. This nation is built on a number of communities, and those communities only exist and are successful by the individuals who will stand up and be counted when such a thing is necessary. Excuse me, I get wound up sometimes. Mrs. Wolf is one of those. Heaven help the United States if we ever come to a point where people in our communities, whether they be Waterloo, New York, or New York City, if people say, well, let somebody else do it. You know, I'm too tired for that. I've got this over here to do. Let somebody else do it. Well, sometime there may not be anybody else to do it. And that's when you look in the mirror and you count the character that you see there. And is it somebody that you can be proud of? Somebody that you know your children can be proud of? In our case, we know Mrs. Wolf is proud of what she has done here, but more importantly, the people here are proud of what she's done here. So with that, I will thank you good night, and thank you for being part of this.
Thank you for those wonderful words to all of our special guests. And thank you for your presence here this evening. At this point, this is the conclusion of the actual award ceremony, but you could move right back downstairs and help us polish off all the snacks.